What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Rod from DBZSHFIGS.com. Today we're talking underrated and overrated Dragon Ball SH Figuarts in my collection. Of course, that does mean that these are just my picks, my opinions, so if I roast one of your favorites, don't get too mad at me. In the comments below, leave who you think are the most underrated and overrated figures in your own collection, and let's see if we agree on any of them. So for this list, we're going to be going back and forth. I'm going to go one underrated, one overrated, all the way through. I have 3 of each. And trust me, some of these are gonna sting, but hey, it's all for fun and to shine a light on figures that deserve a little bit more love and figures that maybe get a little too much love. But before we begin, just want to let you know that I'm on the road to 5,000 subscribers. Once I reach that milestone, I'll be giving away a Tamashii Nation store exclusive Son Goku Innocent Challenger. And while you're at it, make sure you check out my website DBZSHFIGS.com for a complete archive of every single release in the Dragon Ball SH Figuarts line. Alright, let's jump right in. And my first underrated figure, if you've watch my videos for a while, you know I always say this figure is underrated. I have Frieza first form with Pod. So we're starting pretty strong. The figure is a masterclass in presentation. The sculpt is sharp, the paint is crisp, and the engineering on these tiny joints are insanely good. But the star of the show is obviously the Pod itself. The Pod makes this a full display piece, not just another figure you post and forget about. You put this thing on a shelf and it instantly becomes a centerpiece. You know I always be talking about shelf presence, and this one has it to a T. The glossy white, the purple interior, the way Frieza just sits like he's judging someone or judging your entire collection is just pretty funny. And can we talk about the articulation? A first form Frieza with this amount of range is wild. If you have this figure, you know how crispy smooth the articulation is. Every joint moves the way it's supposed to, and then just the sheer amount of expressions that come with the figure. You can smirk, you can make him look like he's talking. Everything the character does in the Namek saga you can recreate. For some reason, people don't really hype up this figure enough. Maybe just because it's not the most popular form, maybe it's not because it's the final form, but at the end of the day, this is one of the greatest figures, in my opinion, that strictly does not get enough love. I know the price tag might deter some people, but I could guarantee you that it's worth the price. I mean, just look at it. It's incredible. It's amazing. It's a on-point representation of the character. So yeah, for me, Frieza first form with Pod is criminally underrated. Alright, you're probably not ready for this, but my first overrated pick is Super Saiyan Gotenks. Now, I could hear you gasping, I could hear you typing in the comments about how it's one of the best figures, but I mean, first of all, don't get me wrong. I think the figure is amazing, and I think the greatest thing about the figure is the accessories that it comes with. Of course, he comes with his little donut effect piece as well as a kamikaze ghost, and I think those are just incredible. I think they should definitely keep those and even expand those whenever they decide to re-release or remake a new Super Saiyan Gotenks. The figure itself looks good. The hair sculpt is fire, the expression plates are fun, and who doesn't love Gotenks to begin with? But let's keep it real. The hype of this figure gets versus the actual experience of owning it doesn't really match up. To me, the biggest problem with the figure are the proportions. If you saw my review of this figure, that was the main con that I came up with the figure. Everything just feels a little bit off. The torso looks a little too long, the pants don't really drape naturally, and the articulation range is surprisingly limited for such a small body, and the fusion vest tends to hinder the movement more than people admit. Also, as far as scale wise, this figure is pretty large compared to what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a fusion between Gotenks and Trunks, so it's supposed to be little kid. It should be basically as tall as, you know, Daima Goku Mini, but for some reason he's very big, so I do hope that they fix that issue whenever they present to us a new Gotenks. Also, for me, myself, I would have very much loved if they would have included a base form head on this figure. That way you get a base form Gotenks as well as a Super Saiyan Gotenks, because those are not really the most iconic versions of the character. Of course, you know what I'm talking about. Eventually, we will get a Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, and I assume that's going to be its own release by itself. So why not just include a base form with this one? But anyways, this one just came to mind because I was browsing on TikTok. I was looking at people's like top 10 list, and this one kept popping up, and I was like, would I put this on my top 10? I don't think so. So to me, it's a little overrated. Please don't get too angry at me, but that's just my opinion. To end it all, is it a fun figure? Yes, of course. Is it perfect? Heck no. Next underrated gem, we have Zarbon, and this is, the perfect Prince version, not the ugly, disgusting one. This figure is the definition of Tamashii. Why didn't you market this harder? Because holy crap, Zarbon might be one of the best Namek Saga figures they've ever done. The sculpt is anime accurate to a ridiculous degree. The skin tone is spot on, the armor looks fantastic, and the faceplates capture that I'm beautiful and dangerous energy perfectly. And here's why he's underrated. Zarbon came out during a time when people were laser focused on Goku's, Vegeta's, and Frieza's. So a side character release just didn't really make waves out there. But in hand, the articulation is buttery smooth, especially in the torso. His ponytail joint lets you do dramatic posing you wouldn't expect otherwise. And when you stand Zarbon next to Dodoria and Frieza, suddenly your Namek shelf explodes with personality. This figure deserved way more attention than it got, and I hardly ever see it on people's top 10 of figures. But if you've ever actually held this figure in your hand, you know what I'm talking about. Everything just flows greatly. The figure itself looks amazing. It has a ton of shelf presence in my opinion. So for those reasons, I do think this figure is pretty underrated. So here's another maybe shocking, maybe not too shocking pick, but for my second overrated pick, I have Perfect Cell Premium Color Edition. Now listen, Perfect Cell in particular, iconic character. Of course, he has his own saga in Dragon Ball Z. So the figure itself is always gonna have a legacy. Everyone loves Cell. I love Cell. The colors on this figure are vibrant. The sculpt is still solid considering it's older, but it's definitely not flawless. The articulation shows its age hard. The torso is limited. The legs have the oldest design, and the arms don't have the smoothness of modern releases. And the biggest issue, probably the price, to be honest, because this is the most quote-unquote perfect Cell that we have in Dragon Ball SH Figuarts. This figure resells for an exorbitant amount of money. So if you want to get an SH Figuarts Cell in your collection that looks the best, you're going to be spending a pretty penny. And it's just ridiculous at this point that the best perfect Cell we have is still one of those 1.0s. I don't understand it. Of course, I will say that given the recent developments with the prototypes that Tamashii Nations are showing, it seems like we're fully going into the Cell Saga now. So I do expect a 3.0 or a 4.0 perfect Cell within the next year or two to be released. So we will finally break free of the chains of this figure. But still, I cannot understand how we never got a 2.0 perfect Cell, because like I said, he's one of the most important characters in the entire series. My final pick for underrated figures is one that I think does not get enough respect, and it's Super Saiyan Trunks from 2016. This figure was a massive upgrade at the time, and even today, I would honestly say it still holds up pretty well. Of course, I do prefer the brand new 4.0 look to a figure and articulation, but at that time, at 2016, we were just stepping away from the 1.0 era, and 2.0s were coming in hard, and this one definitely came and made waves. The face sculpt is still one of the best trunk expressions they've ever done. Of course, I love the fact that they included a base form head with this one, so you were able to have a Super Saiyan Trunks as well as a base form Trunks in the Saiyan armor, which is not something that they did with the newest release of this specific figure. For whatever reason, they decided not to include the base form head, which, why? You did it back then. It's not like it was going to cost you that much extra to upgrade it. For me, that's why he's underrated, because it's very rare that you get two figures in one. Of course, Tamashii, if they could, they would like to split every single character form into a different figure so that they could get more money, which makes business sense for them, but it kind of sucks for us because we have to buy all these different figures when they could just include different faces, different heads. So this was actually pretty dang worth it. And at the time, this figure was released for only $50. So you got two figures for $50, which just makes it an incredible deal all around. The figure does command a lot of shelf presence just because of the fact that it's about Trunks, which is one of the most beloved, one of the most iconic characters in the entirety of the Dragon Ball franchise. For me, this is one that I proudly have in my collection and will continue to have it, unless they do end up releasing a 4.0 version that's better than this one. But just wanted to give this figure some flowers. For the time, for 2016, he was king in my opinion. And in 2025, I think he still holds up pretty well. And the final overrated pick, yeah, this one's gonna hurt a little, but it's Super Saiyan Goku, the World Tour exclusive from 2023. People do tend to love this figure a lot, and you know, for good reason. It's a Super Saiyan Goku. When he first turned Super Saiyan, it comes with an aura effect piece. But that's basically it. I mean, for the price that this figure fetches on the resale market, you would think it would come with a lot more stuff, maybe a Kamehameha effect piece. But no, it's basically the stuff that would come in a standard $34.99 figure with just an aura effect piece that, you know, costs $29.99, and you're paying like double, triple the price of those two things combined. I will say visually, the colors are pretty good, and it's, you know, for certain people, this is going to be one of the best looking Gokus. But to me, myself, I kind of tend to prefer the Awakening Goku colors better. Maybe that's just me, but I mean, at the end of the day, I could only tell you what my opinion is. But this figure is basically just a repaint of that in a way. So I don't understand why it fetches such a high price tag. And then considering the fact that they now are releasing a 4.0 Awakening Goku that's currently up for pre-order on Premium Bandai, you could get that for $65 compared to whatever this figure is going for nowadays, which is probably way more, and you would have a way better figure. It's cool, yes. It's a collectible, yes. But is it truly this god tier figure people treat it as? No, I don't think so. And if it weren't for an exclusive with limited availability, people would talk about it like, oh yeah, just another Goku, right? And that's it, my picks for the most underrated and overrated Dragon Ball SH Figuarts in my collection. Again, do you agree with these? Do you disagree? Leave your opinions below in the comments. I love seeing your different takes. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and drop a comment telling me your most underrated and overrated figures. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day.